Greetings. Welcome back to the Cape Lead Revolution and another edition of Leaders with Leaders. Coming to you this week from National Harbor in Maryland, here at a great condo with an absolutely amazing guest. It is my absolute honor to introduce my former boss, Brigadier General Darren Cole. Sir, thank you so much for being on the Cape Lead podcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
No, so this is huge. So you and I had great conversations at Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst when I helped you lead the 305th Air Mobility Wing.
Absolutely.
That was
always did.
Oh, just it's the can-do wing, so we were the can-duo. So that was a whole lot of fun. But before we get into this, before we get into what I know is just gonna be an amazing conversation, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your family and
Sure.
What makes you you?
Absolutely. Deep question there. But so a little bit about my story. Spent the first 22 years of my life in Central Illinois, small town farm kid. Grew up with 4-H projects and things like that, and then went to the University of Illinois. Didn't follow the standard path necessarily of all Air Force ROTC folks there. A lot of engineering majors, but I just kind of followed my passion, which was geography, which was just the best way to blend in a whole bunch of different things that I liked. And then went into the Air Force and wanted to see the rest of the world, wanted to serve a greater good, and man, the Air Force was just a great way to do that. And also joined because I thought it looked like a great way to build a family. So married my high school sweetheart, Cassie, and I've got 2 great kids that we've been able to raise up through the Air Force, and they have not been harmed. In fact, they've probably are better kids because of it. Some great opportunities that they've had as we've traveled around the world and been stationed in different places. And so you ask me what makes me who I am, it's all of that. It's the family, it's where I'm from, and those life experiences that I've gained from the Air Force. And growing up in a small town, Midwestern town. So
that's from a small Midwestern farm town to now Brigadier General, working at the Pentagon yet again. But you've had some interesting assignments.
Absolutely.
And so your career has been completely non-standard, like according to anyone who's going to promote through the ranks to general. But you've done some cool shit. Like, so what have you liked about your career?
So, you know, one of the reasons, like that I talk to people about why the Air Force is a great deal still is I found out kind of early on I'm a jack of all trades. I'm pretty good at a lot of things, and was always a team player kind of in high school. And the Air Force has been great in that regard because it lets me explore a lot of those different things. And I guess my interests are not aligned with the standard path.
Sure.
But I've been lucky enough, blessed enough to be in a career that's allowed me to do that. So, like, you know, the first 3 assignments of my career were all flying, instructing and growing my knowledge as an aviator, which absolutely loved it. Absolutely, that's what I wanted to do. And then even the 4th assignment was too. But I figured after that, I had pretty much figured it out. Wanted to do the Monty Python thing, something completely different. And so then I went off into kind of international affairs and went to school to learn Spanish for the 3rd time. It actually stuck that time.
Nice. And
an assignment to Southern Command where I worked exercises, and then an assignment out to PACAF, flew C-17s out there, but kind of started getting that outside of the continental United States, a more international flavor, which was awesome.
And that was where you did your squadron command.
It is. Squadron commander of, again, non-standard, can't be the normal. It was an operations support squadron, which had about 13 different Air Force specialty codes in it, so very diverse with respect to the career fields, with respect to the ranks and the ages of the people in there. Thrilling, awesome, mentally challenging, and great. Then I went to another school. Air Force has been really good to me and thrown me into some great educational opportunities. Came out of that to a job in the Pentagon, thinking big thoughts and strategy with an outfit called Checkmate that does kind of near-term Air Force strategy making sure that the Air Force and our war planners and combatant commands have the best technology baked into their war plans and are using this as best they possibly can. And then briefing some of those things to this Air Force senior leadership. Again, non-standard for a mobility Air Forces, a C-141, a T-1, a C-17 guy like I started out to do a job like that, but man, it's really what interested me, and I got imbued into that, picked up the lingo, picked up the language, found out I was kind of a natural at a planning and a strategic thought process, learned a lot from the people around me, just had a ball. Got picked up for group command then.
Which is a very abnormal group.
Yeah, exactly. Another non-standard group, which was Air Expeditionary Advisory Group in Kabul, Afghanistan, where we were living on a forward operating base inside an Afghan Air Force base in Kabul International Airport at the time in Kabul, Afghanistan. Awesome. Got to advise the Afghan Chuck Norris,
Nice.
two-time hero of Afghanistan and the leader of the Kabul wing of the Afghan Air Force, which basically provides air power to the northern half of the country. Super interesting job. There I got to fly Cessna 208s, Mi-17s, MD-530s, C-130s, interacted with some super sharp American airmen, Czech airmen, Mongols, Greeks. We had a plethora, some Danes, so great opportunity. Coalition, Afghans, Joint, we had some Navy folks there as well. So again, a non-standard path.
You bet.
But I loved it because it's something that I had considered doing earlier on, was joining the 6th Operations Squadron and doing their mission, which was formal internal defense.
Sure.
It just didn't work out at the time, but it came back around, and again, blessed to have that opportunity.
Nice.
After that, to the Pentagon, to another job in war plans and policy, which was a number of things, working on global force management, i.e. how we deploy our forces and how we plan to schedule them out over time to manage operation tempo. So that's near and dear to every airman's heart, anybody in the military. I mean, that's what drives the life, the family, is the ops tempo. And so I got to spend a year doing that, and it was a great learning experience. And then, out of the blue, here, non-standard again, a smart, very smart person who I greatly respect took a look at me in the promotion and the wing command selection, and he said, hey Virgil, I go, Virgil, I'm so sorry, it's not going to happen for you. I've taken a look at your year group, and it's just not going to happen. It's not because you couldn't do it, because I think you'd be fantastic wing commander, but it's not going to happen. Your time has passed you by. And so I said, awesome, Roger, I want to keep serving, and I'll take a job that this war dogs, this war plans and policy job will still maybe give me an opportunity in case they change their mind or something. At least I'll be super productive, and it'll have meaning. I'll be doing something that matters. So of course, due to a strange year group that I was in, he had looked at my resume wrong, my cert wrong, and I was still within a year that I could be selected for wing command. I got selected for wing command at Joint Base McGuire-Dix-Lakehurst of the mighty Can-Do wing, where I inherited the greatest command chief ever.
Stop.
Chief Bachesa. And I basically took that wing from a best friend, John Price, who had selected you to be the command chief. And I think after about 10 minutes, I knew, like, yep, absolutely, this is the guy I want to be on the leadership team, because we had a huge responsibility. And that was just 2 years of absolute fun. being a wing commander as an 06, as a colonel, building teams and taking people so that they could put the global superpower. So after that, another career impossibility, again, on-time promotion. So for all of you Air Force people, or you Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, whatever, or if you're in the corporate world and there's some chosen path or some milestones that you think you've got to hit in order to get that next promotion, get that next rank in the Air Force. Most people who get picked up for general officer have been promoted early, 1 year, at least 1 year, 2 years, some 4 years. I am an on-time guy, but blessed to have good leadership who saw the potential I had, and they said, dude, we're gonna make you a general. And I said, what? Literally said, you're kidding. It's pretty funny. But absolutely, they were serious. And then it happened. And, my kids were floored, and wife was floored, and kids basically said, hey, now you're somebody because you're going to have a parking spot. Congratulations, Dad, you have arrived. So that was cool.
Nice.
And then got picked up to do another deployed assignment, which was the director of the CENTCOM Deployment Distribution Operations Center, or the CDDOC, in Camp Arif John, Kuwait, living out in the Kuwait desert with a bunch of my Army friends, and learning logistics, working for Central Command during times of some heightened crises. I learned a ton. So non-standard path, absolutely. Not promoted early, told that I was down and out, just never counted myself out, because the reason I serve is not for rank, it's not for promotion, it's just because I love doing what I do, I love serving that greater good, just like when I was joining. So,
that's the thing that I love about your story was, from the very beginning, you were just there for the purity of getting the mission done. You wanted to lead, you wanted to help people make the mission. It was never about your position, it was never about your rank, it was never about your next rank. You just want to do a great job. I think that's where I instantly fell in love with you, as far as how all that goes. But like one of the cool things and the horrible things I heard you talking there was, you've done 2 year-long trips away in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I know what kind of burden that puts on the family. So what advice do you have for our viewers, for our listeners out there? What do you do to restore your soul? What do you do to put on your oxygen mask? What do you do that makes you the best you, so that you can be a good teammate, you can be a great leader, you can be a husband, father, all those things? What are those things?
Yeah. So great question. And I've had a lot of help, obviously, surrounded by good folks who take a good look at those things and offer me great advice. The thing that has probably helped me the most, 2 things. There's one, there's a book that talks about, I think it's The Art of Full Engagement, by a former tennis coach. Lair, L-O-E-H-R is his last name. But it talks about you cannot be wholly engaged with somebody 24 hours a day. And he did his studies on athletes. And so he noticed that they would do much better if they went through intense periods, followed by rest and recovery periods, followed by more intense periods. A lot of science behind it as well, with your diurnal rhythms, and I can't even remember the cool, awesome scientific word at this point, but suffice it to say, the human attention span goes in waves. You can go for about an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, fully engaged, where you are being charismatic, you are staring deeply into the eyes of the other person that you're communicating with, and they get it, they feel that. But you can't do that all day long. So you got to have yourself some time to recover. So one of the things I do to rejuvenate myself is I give myself that excuse that I can't be fully engaged, I can't be on 8 hours, 10 hours a day. And so I've kind of worked my battle rhythms during my day to take advantage of that. And my last job was joint, so I kind of looked at some other ways to do it. And the Army talks about sleep, nutrition, exercise, SNE. Gotta have 7 hours of sleep, that's me, to work at my best. Throughout the week, if I neglect that, I can see myself tailing off in performance by the end of the week, and I become a zombie who can't critically think, and that's what we're paid to do. Right. Otherwise, we'd be robots. Nutrition's a big thing because it can keep you going. I used to be able to eat milkshakes and hamburgers for lunch and have no performance dip, but as I'm getting older, I can feel the post-lunch food coma, and I can't power through it the way I used to. Yeah. And exercise. Exercise, it de-stresses me, so mentally it's very important. I always say it's like a computer that needs to defragment itself and put the brain bytes in the right storage containers. I have no idea if that's true, but that's what it seems like. Right. And when I'm moving, it happens. My brain just thinks and it puts things in the right places. So sleep, nutrition, exercise. A couple other things from the Air Force perspective, they talk about the 4 pillars of wellness, and I'm a huge believer in those. And that one just kind of adds in spirituality. You and I have talked about spirituality, and for me, it just kind of comes from my Christian upbringing, and it's kind of what I need to stay grounded. And so I make sure that I tap into the written word of Christian foundation, which is the Bible, and then I circulate myself amongst people who are smarter than me in that regard, who can kind of feed me as well.
So as far as the inner circle and everything that comes with it, I mean, I can only imagine the leadership opportunities from working with the Afghanis to working down at Salcom for the Admiral. Yeah. You know, and just the different exposure, the different environments that you've had to either lead in or how you learned to lead in. So what are some of your favorite books, your favorite quotes, your favorite videos, movies, TED Talks, like, well, whatever it is. So if there's things that you turn to, what are those things that have been very beneficial to you?
So from a leadership perspective, I tend to gravitate towards leaders who have excelled in many environments. So excel in the military environment, excel in the political environment, and big World War II history buff. And so I have tended to benefit greatly from some examples like George Marshall, Colin Powell, and Dwight Eisenhower. And so, of course, I have read a book really thick. My kids make fun of me about how long it takes to get through that book, but I read slow, I comprehend. So some really good books there. Let's see. Colin Powell, he has a very readable book called It Worked for Me. And he basically just has little short lessons about a lot of different things that are just what worked for him. And I think my personality has some similarities evidently with his, because what worked for him seems to work pretty well for me too. Same thing with George Marshall and Dwight Eisenhower. Those guys were just phenomenal leaders of massive organizations during critical times for our nation. They dealt with the military, the political side, the Paul Mill interface, just absolutely strong examples of how to deal with those situations. Some TED Talks, almost any TED Talk. I mean, some great ones out there. There's a really good one. I think it's Julian Treasure about how to speak, and that one is really good. Good book by Brene Brown, Dare to Lead, or The Courage to Lead. Not good with the name of it actually.
I think because she has Dare to Lead and then Daring Greatly. She's got many books, so check out Brene Brown. Go to BreneBrown.com. She has downloadable stuff. So for feedback, just for communication, there's a whole lot of great free downloads from her. So by all means, do that.
Yeah. So she's got some great things in there about vulnerability. Yeah. And so another one is, so there are a couple of books that really spoke to me and kind of explained me to me. That was one of them. And then The Speed of Trust, I think, is another one that just really explains how people are programmed. And at the base of all relationships is trust. It's how I've always operated beforehand, but then when I saw it in the book, it makes me realize it, makes it much more tangible. I can explain it to other people that that's how they operate.
You bet.
And so those have been some really great ones.
You know, yeah, I like seeing all these books. So a lot of these things that I knew, that I just believed in my very core. But it's interesting to watch these because you see the science backed behind it. You see a lot of research. They can put a name to it, and that's that. You know, so much of leadership is building that shared and common vernacular.
Absolutely.
And that's why, like, you know, the Air Force has all of our pro words. You know, so you say these words and they have distinct meaning.
Absolutely.
And leadership is so great about that. And one of the things that I've copied from you was, and we talked about this a little bit at lunch today, was Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson.
Absolutely.
And so so I got it, well, check it out. And General Cole said, hey, I've been meaning to read this book. So I said, hey, borrow it. So he read it, very, very quick read. You've heard me talk about it, you know, by all means read it. It took me like 45 minutes, but then he signed it. And now I've had like 20 people sign that very copy of Who Moved My Cheese. And so that's what I like about the leadership learning. And it's great because not only but you can share that with other people. Mm-hmm. And now in this case, when we're talking about, you know, Who Moved My Cheese, I know what's different between a sniff and scurry and a hem and haw.
Absolutely.
And now like, hey, you're kind of being a hem and haw. I need you to sniff and scurry it up a little bit, you know. And so that's been huge. But one of the things that I learned from you was Socratic method. And so can we talk a little bit about Socratic method and how leaders can use this to help shape conversations for their people?
Sure. So I came to the method kind of later than maybe many people would. Some of my contemporaries, you know, they would go to like a very traditional liberal arts and sciences upbringing, critical thinking and things like that. And I don't know when I picked it up. A couple of places I can probably point to. One was an executive leadership development seminar where a leadership counselor just straight up said, you are going to achieve much more in your counseling sessions with those you're leading if you pull something from them rather than saying, here's what I observe in you. So in order to do that, you have to ask questions. You have to ask questions so that the people answer them. You can kind of shape what you're digging at. I probably know what I'm trying to get them to answer, so I just shape my questions in the way that makes them realize and verbalize what it is that's inside them that I'm trying to pull out. And there's much more power in getting someone to realize it and verbalize it because they buy in, they own it. I can tell somebody all day long. I can tell my kids that all day long. I can tell my airmen that all day long. Soldiers, sailors, they're all the same. We're humans. So the Socratic method of just asking people a lot of questions, is so powerful. As you increase in rank as well, that's almost your job, is just to ask smart questions. So the Socratic method is pretty powerful.
And I loved it, and I watched leaders, because it's a way of asking questions for them to, you know, find their conclusions. This could get bastardized to where someone is trying to catch people in a lie, or, you know, setting them up for failure. And I've seen that used, but if used right with the right intent, like it's a phenomenal tool. And that's what I learned at the 305th.
Very true. You know. I think it can go astray. So what I try to do is I start with the assumption of trust.
You bet.
Again, you know, for our context, the Air Force builds great leaders. The people that they assess are smart. They have great morals and ethics. There are a few that go through the filter and they have some flaws here and there. So it's not perfect, but I have to start out with the initial assumption that they've been well trained and they've been placed in the right place, so I'm going to trust them. I'll hold them accountable if they're wrong, but so what I try to do is create that environment, that culture of dignity, respect. I trust you. I want you to go fast. I want you to go long. I'm going to empower you. And so I think we have that trust before we sit down and start. I ask questions, and I try to do everything I can to keep the barriers to communication low, because everybody's got the defensive shield. When they get a question, they start thinking through what angle are they coming from. So I just try to disarm everybody as early as possible and get some truth that they can realize and own, and therefore they become a better person.
And it's weird for a lot of those meetings. It's from my experience, it's only the insecure people that have a problem with that. Like, why is he asking me this? How can they, But if you're secure in yourself, just answer the question. The
Absolutely.
boss is curious, And so it's such a phenomenal method. But time and time again, it'd be the insecure person.
Yeah,
who have a tough time.
And I think you're absolutely right. Brene Brown gets at this actually too. That the vulnerability, if you will offer some vulnerability, you will learn, you will grow from it. And so the people who don't raise the shields, man, those are the ones that I want them.
You bet.
I would rather have an imperfect person who just wants to learn than I would have a perfect person who doesn't want to listen.
You bet.
Because you can mold them and you can pull out something that you can't even see that's inside them,
Sure.
as long as they're willing. And you, Chachi Pachesa, probably helped me learn better than most people how to deal with weaknesses or perceived imperfections. Like, none of us are perfect. I believe that we've got these God-given gifts, and some people are gifted in other areas and they're going to be perceived as weaker in other areas. But that's natural, normal, that's the way it is. So deal with it.
Let humans be human.
Yeah, and you did an awesome job of doing that. And I think the thing that you demonstrated the best there at the 305th was that it's absolutely fine to be human. And so maybe we both did that and took the wing to a better place.
I think so. I honestly think so too. And so with that, we'll take this to our break. We'll be back here at the Cape League Revolution with Brigadier General Darren Cole. Be right back. Welcome back to the Cape League Revolution. Going back here in the closing minutes with my guest, General Darren Cole. So, sir, we were kind of talking at break a little bit here, but what is... I'm gonna switch it up, right? So what is, if you could give a piece of advice to anybody, like if you could say one thing to them, to an aspiring leader, for someone who's maybe in their first leadership position, they have their first direct report, coming to them, what is one thing that you would tell them that you need to do this to be a successful leader?
I think the thing that I would start out with is just be yourself. It's very simple. It's not highfalutin. There's nothing fancy about it. But I think a very common mistake that leaders are tempted to do, leadership is esoteric. There's lots of different opinions on what it is,
right,
what situations you apply it into, etc. Just block that all out. Just be yourself. People perceive authentic leadership. They perceive authenticity and credibility and trust and caring. And so if you're trying to be someone else's style of leadership, it's going to be forced. You may do okay at it, you may do very well at it, but some people, the super perceptive ones, are not going to feel the leadership.
Right.
And I just think it's so much more effective if it's who you are, if it's authentic leadership. It's going to come from within, from who you are as a person and your deep morals, ethics, values, beliefs. So be yourself. Admit that you're not perfect, and it's okay to learn. And I think it's absolutely freeing. So a little story for me: when I was a major working in Southern Command, I had had a lot of leadership experiences, but didn't come from a military background, not too much military, none in my immediate family, and very little in the extended family. So I had this ideal, this vision of what a military leader was. And maybe it was Patton-like, you know, rough, gruff, tough, and serving with Admiral Stavridis in Southern Command, a very different style of leader, highly successful, much more my personality. And so that really, it gave me permission, let me see that, oh gosh, there's not just one style of leadership that can be successful. And he was wildly successful, smart, doing the right things, and his outcomes were possibly even greater than that style of leadership that I thought the military was.
Right.
But just a phenomenal freeing experience for me, and since that point, just leading like I think I need to lead.
You bet.
And it's freeing. It's pretty fun.
So on those lines, you know, there's so much going on. Obviously, the world's just a crazy place. You've led in different positions all around the globe, different kinds of people, obviously different personalities, different cultures, different rank structures, doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you think it takes? What do you think it takes to be successful in today's times, in modern America or the modern military or anything like that? What are some of the big things that people really need to latch onto in order to be successful?
I'm kind of tempted to go with some 3 C's, and I'll call them character, competence, and courage. I'll probably sprinkle on a couple things to the end of that, but you got to start off with a solid character. Again, it gets back to the authenticity of leadership. Regardless of what job we have, there will be leadership involved. Whether you have an official title for it or not, you can end up leading. Your ethics are basically the moral foundation for that. And the more solid that foundation of character is, the broader the leadership you can take on, or the broader the role that you can take on. You got to be competent too. I think in the military, we, especially at the general officer rank, general has a serious meaning to it. It means you're generally good at everything. I'm lucky because I've been a jack of all trades my whole life, pretty good at most things, not the best at anything, but I have found now that I'm a general that's a pretty good skill set.
Nice.
But I do have to kind of do deep dives in, wrap myself into the new topic that I have purview over, so that I am able to be conversant and beyond conversant advocate on behalf of the people that I'm leading, because that's what I owe them in this whole leader-follower relationship. They give me their trust because they trust me to advocate for them. By God, I better be ready to advocate for them. And then the courage, just having the courage to do your job. Physical courage, mental courage. I think mental courage is often the more difficult part, but it varies by person.
Sure.
The ability to think critically. More and more in this day and age, thinking critically is, I tell my kids, it's what separates us from the robots. If you can't think critically, I will give your job to a robot. It's going to happen at some point. And the ability to learn. I think that's always been something that's been valuable, but the pace of change in current society with technology and the rapidity, the open markets, the pace of change has increased drastically. And if we can't be adaptive learners, we're going to get left behind, or it's at least a higher risk.
Sure.
You know, there are going to be some professions, some roles that survive easier than others, but it's going to be further and further limited.
You bet. You bet. Man, I remember hearing it at McGuire years ago, but character, competence, courage.
Yeah.
You know, the three C's hold true. And so this has been amazing. And so if you're paying attention, like everything that happens here, you can hear Cape. You can hear how General Cole cares about his team, the family, everything. We talked about the alignments in the very beginning on whether your career was aligned for you to make general or not, but you were doing what you cared about, But that was, you know, a conscious choice. So like that, you know, you can talk about the education, his experiences, all the different perspectives that he's been exposed to, that you've had to deal with, and then lastly, the expectations of your people. Just as simple as saying, hey, here's some of my hot buns, here's some of my things, and please let me know. Here's some of the feedback. Here's the Socratic method. They get to expect this from you. You know, trust is paramount. So all those things become expectations, and sir, it is just a thrill of a lifetime to have been your teammate, and even better thrill to be your friend. Thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for your time today. And as always, it is just a true pleasure seeing you, sir.
And we're going to finish it off like we should, right?
And we'll catch you back here on the Cape Lead Revolution.